JJ the CPA here. What do you do after you get your PPP money? So I hope you're doing well. And if you got PPP, second draw, first draw, this go around, you did have to sign off on the fact that you feel there is economic uncertainty in your business. Now, of course, we know there are different qualifications for first draw, second draw. Second draw, you have to have your gross receipts been down 25% at least from any one quarter in 2020 versus 2019. So you've met that hurdle if you're getting the second draw, but both first draw and second draw still require that you certify that you believe there is economic uncertainty. So why am I making that a point right now? Well, then you must have some economic uncertainty, and so what should you be doing? The thing to note is that when PPP came around in 2020, in March of 2020, when it was signed on the 27th, and then it basically opened up in April and got more money, and it was opened up through August 8th, they had a different environment around it. And really, it had an environment of panic because it was a brand new program. It was running out of money, which it did, and then they had to put more money into it soon thereafter. And we know that when PPP first came out in 2020, originally you had to use it up in 8 weeks. And so there was definitely a, how do we get this? And then we got to make sure we use it. And then this term of forgiveness, I think, somehow overshadowed the employer's understanding sometimes, I think, of what it was meant for, meaning it was meant for payroll, rent, and utilities and interest, those basics of the business. But hearing the word forgiveness, when I roll back and I think through what everybody was experiencing at the time, it was well, if I don't use it right, then I've done something wrong. And so I've got to do this so that I can achieve forgiveness. And it also then started last year, this mindset of like, well, then I guess I better do this and I better do that, in terms of maybe forgetting the fact of what it was there for. And there was somewhat of a focus on, well, how do I make sure I get it forgiven? So I've been talking to you all about PPP all the way since then. So now we're in 2021. That PPP was well overdue. We know that they had been talking about it since the summer of last year. And we kept thinking it was coming, it was coming, it was coming. And then right before the year end, signed into law, opened up here in the last week. So back to what I was saying originally. You must be having some economic uncertainty in your business. So now it's time to pause. You have 24 weeks to use it. Now, what I want you to hear is that, yes, you have to use it properly. Yes, you got it, and you said you're going to use it for the covered expenses, which has been minorly expanded. So, yes, you do need to use it accordingly. You need to use at least 60% of it for payroll. But now we have a different set of circumstances. We have more information. If you go to sba.gov/PPP, which I'll put that link in the bottom, we have a ton of information on how we go about using it and the timing and getting forgiveness. A lot has been resolved, but here's the number one thing to remember is that it is 24 weeks. That is your covered period. Yes, you can elect a shorter period of time. I don't know why anybody would do that, so I'm not going to address that. 24 weeks. What was the PPP based on? 2.5 months of average payroll costs for the self-employed. Line 31 is Schedule C, line 34 is Schedule F. Now, gross receipts is Schedule F. Nonetheless, it's based on 2.5 months. 2.5 months of whatever you put down as your monthly costs, your monthly payroll, your monthly net income for the self-employed, right? 10 weeks. You have 24 weeks. No, you can't hoard it. There's no reason. I'm not at all advocating put it in a savings account and don't use it because, I mean, basically when you have a business, you have a bowl of water, okay? You put more water in it, it's all mixed up. Now, you may decide to have your water in 2 glasses And it may feel like, well, I haven't used my PPP yet because it's over here. Well, if you're paying payroll, okay, if you're paying rent and utilities and interest, doesn't matter that you put that PPP in a separate account. Your business is having those expenses, and they then qualify for PPP forgiveness. What I'm talking about is pausing to do a little bit of an outlook for you and your business. I'm an advocate for, if you as the owner, right, have been paying yourself accordingly for however you're structured, that you should use the money appropriately and according to all the rules and all the regulations for yourself as the owner. Right? We're allowed to do that. So there are maximums, $20,833. Also, it's a maximum of whatever you paid yourself in the prior year or whatever it is that you used. No more than that amount divided by 12 times 2.5. So if you only pay yourself a wage of $80,000 as an S Corp or a C Corp, if your partnership line 14A is only showing 80,000, well, the maximum you get to include in the PPP, the maximum that you would get to use for yourself to be able to use for PPP forgiveness would be that 80,000 divided by 12 times 2.5. And with the partnerships, an extra rub of 92.35%. Nonetheless, we also know that you don't get to get forgiven what you don't pay yourself as an owner. So if you paid yourself 80 grand last year, okay, well, you have the opportunity to get forgiveness of that divided by 12 times 2.5, but only if you pay yourself that. So there's really three things to look at as the owner, if you will. It's, well, what did you pay yourself during the covered period, and the forgiveness amount, and the amount that you should not be using of PPP would be more than what it was in the prior year, 19 or 20, whatever's higher, divided by 12 times 2.5, no more than 20,833. Let me be clear on this, okay? You take three figures, and one of those three, the lower of the three, is what you get to include in your forgiveness. This is not a way to find a way for you to get more. The first thing you look at is, what did you pay yourself in 19 or 20, or what was your figures in 19 or 20, divided by 12 times 2.5. That's your limit. Okay. Now that cannot exceed 20,833, which is 100,000 divided by 12 times 2.5. So if you paid yourself 150,000 last year and or in the prior year, that's great. But the maximum that gets to be included is 100,000, i.e. 20,833. But you still have to pay yourself that this year. So if you made 80,000 last year, or you made 150,000 last year, and you paid yourself nothing during the covered period, none of what you didn't pay yourself gets included, right? Seems logical, but I'm making sure you understand that as the owner. You need to actually pay yourself, and you should. That's what it's there for, right? So you're only going to be able to include what you're allowed to include. If you paid yourself nothing in the prior 2 years, you don't get anything of this. That's just how the cookie crumbles on that. Now, the self-employed, you're in a different set of circumstances. It's based on your net. You're done. It's a calculation for your forgiveness. It's just for you on the self-employed on your net Schedule C or Schedule F. But the other thing I want you to really think through, okay, is if you're not paying yourself, why are you paying the other employees? Now, I already know as a business owner, you're like, well, because I got to keep my business going. Okay, that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But now that's your first warning, your first red flag to yourself that maybe you need to be thinking through. Do you need all the employees that you have? Yeah, it's terrible to think. It's awful. I'm an awful person for bringing it up, I'm sure, to some. But I want you to remember, as a small business owner, right? We're talking 300 or less employees to get the second draw, only up to $2 million in the second draw available for PPP, right? The majority of those that are getting PPP are less than 50 employees, if not less than 25 employees, if not less than 10 employees. So if you're getting these dollars and you're wanting them to stretch for your employees, I commend you for that. I want to remind you that you can and should also pay yourself. That's why you own the business, right? So I'm not talking about any scam. So if anybody's interpreting this as a manipulation, you don't even know who's talking to you. And you might as well go watch some other YouTube channel, because I'm a certified public accountant of 28 years. I could care less about my views. I'm out giving good information, the same as I give to my clients. You just happen to be listening to the advice that I'm giving to my clients. But what I want you to hear is, I want you to have a business that lasts beyond PPP. I want you to have a business that lasts beyond the 10 weeks of using PPP. I want you to have a business that lasts beyond the 24 weeks of the covered period. I want you to be around in 2022, 2023. It depends on what statistics you listen to in terms of, well, how many businesses, small businesses, are already out of business permanently, especially in our restaurant industry or food industry. How many will be out of business by the summer? How many are getting PPP? It's helping them to keep going, so to speak, but then once PPP's exhausted, meaning the funds that are received, maybe they're going to go fast and furious out after that. So what is this? Yep, it's called survival of the fittest. It's called survival of the fittest. And it's terrible, and we're in awful positions. This is a terrible situation that we're in. It's called a pandemic, right? And so you need to make sure that your business lasts, okay? Which means that you have to put yourself first as the owner. It's not popular and it's disgusting to say. I get it. I don't care. It's the truth, okay? How long does a business continue if the owner can't cover their own expenses, personally? How long can a business continue if it's not paying its obligations? Now, I get it. How long can a business last if it's not paying its employees? And that's my point. As a business owner, okay, and you're looking to protect your business, you're looking to protect your livelihood, you're looking to protect the employees that are with you, okay? If you stop paying those around you, how long will they stick around? How long will they provide what it is that you need? Landlord, you don't pay rent. How long do you get to stay there with rent not being paid? Your suppliers, your vendors, how long do they stick around with you not paying them? And then with employees, how long do they stick around with you not paying them? Why could an employee can't stick around? It's not their fault. A landlord can't let you continue to rent there. A vendor can't keep giving you product or whatever it is that you need if you can't pay them. It doesn't mean that any of these people are terrible people. But what's interesting, as a business owner, we become maybe a target. Like, oh, you should be doing that. No one else is doing it for you. And why? Well, it's called survival of the fittest. Do you think an employee is going to be able to stay with you and their house goes to nothing and they get evicted and they live in their car and their family doesn't get fed? No, and they have to go do something different. They have to. You could love them, it's the best relationship and you can't believe it, and they happen to be related to you and it's the best thing you've ever experienced with an employee. And it's called a pandemic. Same thing with your vendor. Same thing with your landlord. So as business owners, we have to also think the same. Okay, you got 10 employees. Do you want the entire business gone by the end of the year and none of your 10 have a job and you don't have a business? Or do you need to look carefully and with the scalpel and take a minute and pause? Because if you're in economic uncertainty, which you have to be to get PPP, then you need to look at this not as, oh, I got a Band-Aid, I got a bridge to get me to, No. I can't see how there's any more aid coming. There's not going to be any more PPP. If there's any more PPP, it would be for the narrowest type of industry. There's no more loans to be had. EIDL, it's one. Right? They've come out with other kinds of loans that you might be able to do. But how long are you going to keep borrowing money to do what? I'll tell you what it is as small business owners is that we are superhuman, right? Right? I mean, boom, right? What is that saying with Superman? You know, able to leaps and bounds over tall buildings, up and away, right? Small business owner, right? Small business owners, oh, they make millions. Look at their big house. Oh, they got deep pockets, you know. Oh, they can pull money from here. Oh, they can borrow money from there. Maybe you can, and maybe you are. All those things. But when we're in a pandemic, we're coming out of a pandemic, we have some uncertainty. You signed off that you have uncertainty. So act accordingly. Right? Pause. If you have PPP money and you have 24 weeks to use it, okay? And if you have 10 employees and you're like, I don't need 10 employees. We don't have as much business, or we're not as open as many hours, or whatever the case is. So if you can give 10 employees payroll for 10 weeks and then you're out, would it be better to look at this and go, well, maybe I need to make some really hard decisions because I would rather my payroll last 15 weeks, 20 weeks. Maybe you want it to last 24 weeks, right? So maybe you need to reduce down how many people you have. Yes. Oh my gosh. What do you mean, JJ? You're talking about FTEs and the FTEs and the FTEs and the FTEs. Okay, then why'd you get PPP if all you're going to do is worry about FTEs? Because the first aspect of PPP is that you use it on payroll. The second is that you use it on rent, utilities, and interest. And for most small businesses, when they get PPP in 24 weeks, they're going to use probably all of it. When it comes to forgiveness time, when they hand in that application, it's like, it doesn't even matter about rent, utilities, and interest. I got plenty of payroll in that 24 weeks. So it's using it accordingly, not from a scam, not from a sham. And if you've been watching my channel for a long time, you know that I do not stand for that. I'm not talking about sending your employees on unemployment and then bringing them back so that you could save on your PPP. I'm talking about your business. I'm talking about being smart about your business. I'm talking about you protecting yourself as the owner. I'm talking about you making sure that what relief is being provided is also coming to you. Okay? Many small business owners, they get it, and then who comes first? Everybody else. Vendors, customers, employees. Everyone else comes first. Why? Well, it's the expectation. Why? Because people think that the business owner doesn't need what they require. I'll tell you this, as business owners, what I'm going to hope is not a statistic that I think I've read, but the number of small business owners that are going to have no retirement by the end of this year. Why? Because they pulled money from their retirement, which you shouldn't do. You don't pay a landlord from retirement. You don't pay wages from retirement. If you pull money from retirement, it's because you can't put food on your table. Your car's going to get repossessed. Your house, you're going to get kicked out of it and you're going to live in your car for real. Okay? That's when you pull money out of retirement. And even then you should be like, well, is there a place I can borrow it? But small business owners implode themselves because they don't want to have a tough discussion. I've talked about this for a long time. I've talked about this before the pandemic in some of my early videos back in 18 and 19. Small business owners don't want to have that tough conversation. What you have to think about this is here's the ethics. Okay? Here's the ethics if you want to get real. And if you're an employee that happens to be listening to this, now you think of this. Do you want your employer to not say a word to you? I'm saying this now to the employees. Do you want your employer not to say a word to you and everything just feels great and then 10 weeks PPP's ending and then you don't have a job? Now, if you're in the short term, you're like, well, yeah, I'd want payroll for 10 weeks. But would you rather know sooner rather than later that when the 10 weeks is over, it's over? Would you rather know now where you at least have some time to prepare, at least just even go get unemployment? It takes a few weeks for you to start getting the money. Maybe you start looking at another, job. Employers, what would you rather it be? Everybody thinks highly and, oh my gosh, PPP's here and it's all good. And then 10 weeks hits and you're like, everybody's got to go home. I can't pay anybody. Or would it be better to get real? Okay. To me, the ethics there is that if you know someone's not going to have a job in 10 to 12 to 15 weeks, okay, then you start thinking about when you need to tell them how to help them get a job. Okay. Small business owners are like, oh, it'll get better. No money's coming in. They're using PPP, right? Everybody's getting the pay. And guess who else is usually not getting paid? Themselves. So 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 15 weeks. You can be ruthless financially with good ethics. Here's ruthless. Let's just be honest with you. Let me be honest with you. Let's just for 2 seconds, okay? Let's get real for a second here. Ruthless. Who's coming first, huh? That employer or your kids? Let's get real. Okay? Who's coming first, that employee or your kids? Let's get real. Okay? That's where ruthless starts. So do you get ruthless down to when you have no decision and now you've put your kid before your employee, but now that employee is in a position where they are screwed because you said, you don't have a job. Sorry. Happy weekend. You don't have a job. See, what I'm about is being smart about the use of your PPP, thinking through. You're in economic uncertainty. Get real with yourself. Get real with your employees. Get real with your spouse. Get real with your landlord and your vendors. Get real. Why did the government give out PPP? Because there's uncertainty. They're wanting people to recover. Right? We're not all at the beach and then it's like, oh, we got some more PPP, so I guess I can get a second round. No, there's uncertainty going on. There's uncertainty with your landlord. There's uncertainty with your vendors. There's uncertainty with your employee who's maybe got a partner or a spouse, and there's uncertainty with what they're doing. We need to get real about the uncertainty. We need to buckle down. We got 24 weeks to use it, and you should use it all, and you should use it properly. And you can't hoard it. It's not even possible, okay? For somebody that thinks, well, I put my PPP money in this account, and then I have this account, but I'm not going to touch this. But I'm going to keep making payroll and rent and utilities out of this account, okay? It's all one thing. It's one business. Now, don't get me wrong. It might be a good idea to just have that money sitting there, so to speak. But when you put in an application for forgiveness, it doesn't say, okay, well, the bank account that had the physical PPP deposited into it, did that PPP money into that bank account get used for payroll? No, it says, what was the business's payroll? What was the business's rent and utilities? Okay. It seems logical potentially to somebody to go, well, I never touched my PPP. And I hear that. Well, I never touched my PPP. Well, did you have payroll? Yeah. Well, did you have rent and did you have utilities? Yeah. Okay. When you look at a tax return, you don't report things by here's this bank account and here's this bank account. The same as when you put in an application. It's just here it is. So what I'm saying is don't blow it. Don't just, okay? Get real with yourself and your business and your upcoming needs and look at what's coming. Be real about it. Pull your head out of the sand and start looking around. It starts with how much money do I have in the account right now? And if nothing else comes in, and don't even count PPP in that, whatever that balance, how long does that last? Okay. I know I got this coming in. If I add that to that, how long does that last? I know I got payroll coming up and rent or mortgage and how long does that last? Every business, it's a reality, is bankrupt within 90 days if there's no money coming in. Maybe you have money coming in. Maybe your business is doing great. Maybe you're doing phenomenal. I don't know why. Then I don't know how you got PPP. You had to have had some uncertainty. So how do you address the uncertainty? By getting real with yourself, by doing a forecast. How long is 24 weeks? It's almost 6 months, right? Just about. What's your business look like in 6 months? Here we are, we're in January, right? So what's it look like in February, and then in March, and then April, and then May, and June? And where are you in July, right? So hopefully this makes sense to you, because this isn't about holding the money in a separate account, because if you're still doing payroll, at some point you're going to have to pull money from this. And yes, you got to have payroll. So the theme of this is, as owners, you got to take care of yourself too. Okay? If you don't put yourself first, okay, and you put your business first, you're going to lose in the end. If you don't put yourself first and you put your employees first, you're going to lose in the end. If you put your vendors and you put your landlords first, you will lose in the end, because for small business owners, guess what the business really is? You. It's not the location. It's not the name. It's not the sign. Yes, we will all say kumbaya. It's the employees. And you would be right. I have a team of employees, and this business of mine would not exist. It wouldn't run as efficiently. It's been the best that it's ever been because I have this phenomenal team. Yes, all the credit, massive credit, all the credit, massive credit goes to these employees. Couldn't do it without them. I'd have to let customers go if I didn't have this team. Yes, I would have to rely on these employees. But guess what? If there's no money coming in and there's no business, guess what? If there are no employees, there's still a business, and it's me. It's you. Are you a restaurant? Are you a contractor? Are you a stylist? Do you have a salon? Right? Pick it. You're a doctor. You're an attorney. Right? You're a counselor. You're a veterinarian. Right? Pick anything. You have a barbecue restaurant. You have a dog grooming business. Pick it. Right? The business is the owner. I'm not talking about the big businesses where the owners don't even know where it exists. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about everyday, normal, small business owners that typically have one location, maybe two. Okay? They're in the same vicinity. Right? The business is you as the owner. And let's get real. How do you define the owner? Well, the person who owns it, that's putting the risk and the time and the effort and making sure that it all goes around. Without you, okay, doesn't exist. So you need to protect yourself. And by protecting yourself, you protect your family. And by protecting your family, you protect your business. And by protecting your business, you protect your employees. And by protecting your employees, you protect your customers, your vendors, and your landlord. But there's a nucleus to it. That business didn't start by any of these other entities, by any of these other people, by any of these other forces. There wasn't a group of employees that came to you and said, hey, we want you to start and own this business. We'll come work for you. There wasn't a landlord that came to you and said, hey, I got this spot. Why don't you start a business inside of it? There wasn't a vendor that came and said, hey, we're going to give you these products. Why don't you turn it into something and resell it? No, you started the business. You. And you need to protect yourself. You're in uncertainty. People around you are in uncertainty. Have ethics in what I'm talking about here. Ethics of ensuring that everybody around you is taken care of. I don't know about you, but when I've had to counsel clients and they know that there's uncertainty, there are certain ways to approach it. And many times it's, listen, I mean, if this doesn't happen and this doesn't happen, receptionist, we may have to let you go. Or, you know what, I can keep you for another 4 weeks, but you need to start looking for something else. What can I help you do? Versus 4 weeks from now, you're like, hey, appreciate your service. Hand in the keys. You don't have a job. Right? So you can have compassion by being ruthless. Ruthless is not hand in the keys. You don't have a job tomorrow. That's not ruthless. Ruthless is, listen, 10 weeks from now, it's either you or my kids. Ruthless is, so 10 weeks from now, I'm not going to even get to that because I'm telling you right now, my kids are coming first and we need to find you another opportunity. There's lots of jobs around, right? You can look anywhere online. There's plenty of jobs everywhere, right? Your employees can find other jobs, but you got to give them notice to do it. Now, am I talking about having a board meeting and saying, well, I don't know if we're going to be around in 4 weeks and then everybody leaves you, right? Got to be thoughtful about this and strategic, but you want to protect your business. So ensure that you're using this money wisely. You have 24 weeks to use it. So if I really were to sum it up is you get PPP. And I'm now talking about your business, not FTEs that everybody everybody gets so distracted with FTEs. It's irrelevant. And if it's so relevant, why'd you get PPP? If FTEs are so relevant to you, why did you get PPP? Because it's my first indication that you didn't need PPP if all you're doing is losing your mind over FTEs. When you get that money and you're now going, okay, my covered period's 24 weeks. I got all these employees. The payroll's gone in 10 weeks from PPP. Did I do anything really for my business other than everybody felt good for 10 weeks? So be strategic. Get real. Look at your numbers. Look at your bank balance. Look at what's going on in your business. And protect yourself. And by doing that, you're actually protecting everyone else. Because wouldn't it be better to be around 24 weeks from now, to be around in 2022? And maybe you had 10 employees and you can't really afford them. You could afford 7 employees for 24 weeks. You're there. Right? So you got 7 employees. You're going to be able to keep them employed. And that'll allow you to do what? Maybe get to the end of the year so that in 2022, you either can hire back either those individuals or more. And then in 2022, you can have 15 employees or 20 employees. So we got to be thinking this through. There's a reason that you have 24 weeks to use it. There's a reason. There's a reason for it. Okay? And if your response is, yeah, but on the PPP application, then you shouldn't have even gotten PPP, in my opinion. Because if that's what you're worried about, you don't have economic uncertainty. Because if you've been watching me from the beginning, you know this. You got PPP, which is like getting a fire hose because your house is on fire or is about to be on fire. Okay? If your house is on fire, you don't run to get the hose and then go, well, wait a second, before I start spraying the water on here, it says on the application that however much bucket of water I got at the beginning, I got to have the same amount of bucket of water at the end. So I don't know if I should use any of this. Why your house is burning down? See what I'm saying? So FTEs? No, has nothing to do with anything. Go read the rules. Go read the amount that you got. See what actually applies if you're that worried about it, which you shouldn't be. What's the number one parameter of PPP? To use it on payroll. That's what the number one parameter is. So use it on payroll. And if you're hearing this as, hire your aunt and your uncle and your kids and give yourself a raise. I can't imagine you've heard anything this way, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your existing clients. Your existing employees. I'm not talking about giving yourself a raise. Did you hear me at the beginning? You're paying yourself what you've paid yourself because you're relying on it. If you don't want to pay yourself, that's fine. You have some extra money, better not be using retirement. That's fine. But protect yourself, protect your family, protect your business. That's what protects your employees. That's what protects everybody else. And that's a real superhero. That's somebody that can do all the things that they said in the early Superman. Leap tall buildings with a single bound, up and away. That's a superhero, even if in the moment people don't see it that way. They are irrelevant. They're irrelevant. You see yourself that way. I tell clients all the time, I want you to stick your customer there and your kids there. And I want you to tell your kids, hey, listen, I can't make the soccer game because I don't want this customer to be unhappy. Listen, we're going to have to go without because I can't tell this employee. I don't have it in me to tell this employee that they can't get their bonus, or that they don't have a job here in 10 weeks. So we're going to go without. We're going to ruin our retirement. I'm going to have to work 10 years longer because I didn't want to face reality of the next 90 days or the next 6 months. Right? And most of my clients are like, yeah, you're right. You sit my customer there and my kids there. I ain't telling the customer at all they're coming first before my kids. I'm not telling any employee that they're coming before my kids. The same way as the employee wouldn't do that, and the customer wouldn't do that. Customer's not going to put you before their kids. The employees are not going to put you before their kids. Let's get real for a second. So protect yourself, protect your family, protect your business, which protects your employees, which protects the landlord and everybody else that's relying on your business. Because without you, none of it happens. None of it stays. None of it keeps. So here's your test. How do you know what a priority is? 7 months from now, no one around you is getting paid. Employees aren't getting paid. Landlords not getting paid. Vendors aren't getting paid. 7 months from now, who's still there with you? Who's still there with you? You. Right? Remember I told you earlier, you can't blame your employee. Your employee would have to go do something else. You can't blame your landlord. Landlord would have to go do something else. You can't blame your vendors. They have to go do something else. These are not terrible people. It's called reality. But in 7 months, PPP's done, covered period's over, no money's anywhere. Who's still there? You already know the answer. You've already said it. I'll say it. Your family. Your family is there. You're still there. So when you're making decisions on the hard ones, who's going to be there when there's no money coming in? That's how you then decide priorities. Could you downsize? Sure. Could you have less employees? Sure. Yeah, if you've listened to enough of my videos, you know that there's this neighbor across the street that got his new car, and every time he pulls it out, he's got to make sure everybody knows he's pulling out. He's a nice guy, but Jiminy Christmas, it's just irritating. All right. If you've been watching me for a long time, you know that wasn't even hardly coach. It was a little bit of coach. It was a little bit of coach. All right. Because guess what? We got to get through this. There's no more money coming. And I'm saying that to scare you. It's just a reality. There's no more money coming. There's none. How much more money are you going to borrow? There's no more money coming. This is it. This is the last hurrah, if you will. So make it count. That's the whole point of it. That's the government's intent, is for you to survive, for your business to survive. So survive. All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Love it if you'd subscribe. And then you got this right. You've never met a CPA quite like me.